Hello, my name is Soliday, and I will be talking about Chapter 7 of the book, which is called Identifying Suspects, the Case of the Waco Shooting. This chapter begins with the Waco shooting, which starts off as a biker gangs going at each other. It starts off with a local meetup in Waco, Texas, and two rival gangs, which are motorcyclist gangs, get into an altercation with each other, and it leads to fighting and then knives and then a shooting, and which ultimately led to cops shooting into the group to disband the fighting. It led to 9 deaths, a lot of injuries, and like 177 people arrested, with each one having $1 million bond, to send a message to people that, hey, this isn't right, and don't bring this to our local area. So the big thing about this case is identifying, the deaths of the people who was in that shooting, because police never filed out names and they never gave out names, and a lot of the local news and big news organizations and groups was trying to get the names to tell a story. And this book specifically names a person whose last name is Wheeler. And Wheeler works for a small local news channel, and they were trying to get the names before anybody else, so then they can gain that publicity and that amount of viewers and followers, and this ultimately leads to, is it ethical or not? Because the police never gave out names, because they said that they haven't contacted everybody that is in their family or the kinfolks of those who have died. But a suspect, or a peacemaker that was there, gave the names out to the people to another news channel, and then from there they leaked their names. And as soon as they did that, all the other news channels decided to pick up their names and use it to try to get that publicity and make sure people watch them. And the news channel that Wheeler worked for, at the time, she was working the case, and she wasn't too sure if she wanted to even use the names yet, because she didn't think it was ethical, because the police haven't released it yet. And if she said that if the police haven't released it yet, then that means that she shouldn't, because it'd be a terrible way for someone who is kin to a person that died to see it through news or social media. And Wheeler wasn't too sure, and she was thinking about, like, well, all the other news stations have released information and their names, but she was also thinking at the same time, like, that was like a 5 to 6 p.m. where most people aren't watching the news, so it was a low possibility that, the kin and the family have seen it, and if she tells it to her group, they would work the night news where, it gets majority and most of its viewers. And this leads to, what's ethical and what's not ethical. And eventually they released the information after the police released their names. And after the police released their names, that's when they decide to share it as news. But by the time we got to that point, nobody really cared about it, because their names have already been leaked and everybody's already done the story. And that is what it would be unethical. And reading this chapter and going through it, it talks about journalism, and it's just about telling the truth, and that that's a lot harder to do than it seems. Is to report the truth, and that is true, because it's very hard reporting the truth. There's multiple sides, there's in-depth things about it, there's so much to do about it, different opinions, different perspectives, that it's hard to display and tell the whole truth. And especially in this case, the Waco shooting, because you don't have the names, but you also don't want to make an unethical decision like the person who leaked the names, and the top news channels that as well leaked the names to everybody in the local or state area. And I believe it is unethical. I kind of agree with the cops in this story, that the names shouldn't be leaked until all kin or close family have been contacted by them, because I know that if somebody who was part of my family or kin were to die and I wasn't contacted, or nobody in my family was, and I seen it on the news, I would probably just be very, very sad about it. I'd be distraught, because I would think that's not right. That why would people do that? They treat the people who died as objects at this point in their storytelling. They treat it like objects. When they tell it as news instead of human beings. They just treat them like, okay, this is really good for our news. We're gonna just set them aside now. And I feel like that's just unprofessional as well. I believe, in my opinion, and it's definitely unethical. And I believe an example that I could use that happened recently was the death of Kobe Bryant. Whenever he died, not even 10 minutes after, news was released, and his close friends, majority of the people who were in the NBA, and even his family, didn't even get the news. They seen it through social media, and that's just the bad thing about social media, is that once something gets leaked, it goes everywhere, especially if you're a big name like Kobe Bryant. And a lot of people didn't believe it at first until official news came out, and then people were sad about it. But a lot of people were mad at the time TMZ, because they released information that he died in a helicopter crash, and a lot of people wanted to cancel them, say bad things about them, because they didn't give them no time at all to even contact a single family member of theirs. And I believe that's could be very relatable to the Waco shooting. Obviously none of them were as big name as Kobe Bryant, but it still shouldn't matter. You should feel about people's feelings and those around them, and that they should come first before people who might have not known them, or strangers, or just for your newsletter, or just news channel at all. And that's basically all that I got from it. I side with the police. I believe that it's unethical to contact people who haven't been contacted yet, to release names. Everybody that is with them, their kin, their family, close friends, they should know the information first before the viewers and the outsiders know the information, because then it makes you feel like a terrible person, and it just doesn't treat people like as human beings. It just treats them like just simple news, and simple words on a paper, or just simply speaking about it as if they were nothing. And that's mainly the chapter, and that's what my perspective of identifying suspects is. And that's it. Peace.